Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're talking about all the various methods we use to stand in our own way. Low self-esteem, procrastination, avoidance, perfectionism, disconnection, and lots more. I advise my daughter on liberating spiders. Martin wakes up late with a hoarse voice, and we discuss the merits of sizing things by comparison with other things. Oh, and bemoan the dwindled interest in a game of conkers. Self-sabotage.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. I'm just trying to talk my daughter through how to evacuate a spider from her room.
Oh, okay.
Out of the building.
What method did you go for in the end? Shushing it, putting a glass over it and slide a bit of paper under it.
That was my second suggestion. My first one was ask it politely to leave. That didn't seem to have any effect. But yes, I went for the bit of card under the glass. The problem she's got is that her window in her accommodation at uni doesn't open very wide, presumably to stop students throwing themselves out when they've got a very poor essay mark.
Yeah.
And so she was worried that the whole of the glass, the rim of the glass, couldn't get through the gap. So I suggested she just dislodged the card the width that would go through the gap and shake him through that. Do you think was that a good policy?
It seemed like it's quite a long-winded conversation you had there. She's at uni. Surely she better work that out herself.
Well,
she's a bright kid.
She's doing psychology. She's not doing maths or engineering.
Well, no. I suppose the psychology of a spider.
Well, the thing I was most pleased about was that she said she didn't want to wash him down the sink because she felt guilty. True. And I thought, quite right, because they drown if you wash them down the sink.
I've got a froggy throat. I've hardly been speaking this morning. I'll tell you what it is, though. It's because I was up late this morning. That's what it is.
Why?
Well, what happened? The alarm went off. For some reason, I hadn't silenced the alarm. My normal work alarm went off, so I thought it was a work day.
Yeah.
I started sort of getting myself together mentally, and then I suddenly realised it wasn't a work day.
Yeah.
So turned the alarm and went back over to sleep. I went back to sleep for a long time.
Yeah, no, so when I suggested the start time, that's why you put it back then, because you were still in your pyjamas.
Yeah. I wasn't even, no, I haven't got, I'm going to have to.
Yeah, I don't want to know. Our listeners don't want to know what you sleep in.
No, they don't, and I wasn't going to go into that, but
Anyway, just an update on the spider.
Oh,
He's safely outside.
Oh, right, okay.
He's gone. So,
what sort of spider was it?
I don't know. I'm not really very familiar with the. But he was big. I can tell you that.
Okay, that's all you need to know, isn't it?
I'll put a picture of him on the Instagram account. I know, obviously, I won't because I always say that I will.
No, have you got a picture of it then?
Yeah. Beth sent me a picture of him, and I assume it's a him. It might not be, mightn't it? But I suppose if you don't like spiders, he's a size.
Yeah, no,
it's
really.
the time of year for spiders, isn't it?
Yeah, they sort of come indoors, don't they, when it starts to get a bit colder?
As we all do. Does it have it doesn't happen really. I mean, it probably has happened. But if I inadvertently get up late, it really throws me for the day.
Yeah. It's almost, I felt like I've almost sabotaged the day. You know, by laying in too long.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, go on. Then you better tell us what you want to talk about.
That was a neat segue, wasn't it, really?
Well.
Not neat.
No, not neat. Clunky.
Clunky at best.
Yeah.
Yes. So self-sabotage.
Okay. I wonder if that's on the list of ways in which we can self-sabotage.
It's not, actually, because I was looking at that. Because I wanted to talk about self-sabotage because I wanted to look at the reasons we do it and the examples. Yep. So we could put that could come under an example, and how to stop it. But it was a thought I'd been having during the week, actually, about self-sabotage. We'd been discussing it on one of the meetings, and I suddenly found that you put it on the list as well. So
there we are. I can't. If you're going to ask me why I put it on the list, I'm going to tell you now. I can't remember.
Can't remember. No, you don't. It was good on its own. It stood on its own merits.
I think so.
I could have said a cliche like "great minds think alike." You know what I mean? But I don't think you've got a great mind, so that wouldn't fit in.
No, fools seldom differ would have fitted, though, wouldn't it?
It would. Or I could have said, no, it's not. It's such a great minds don't think, because I haven't got a great mind. I'm going to sabotage all this episode's going to be rubbish. And
yeah, exactly that. And that would be your low self-esteem, which is a reason for self-sabotage.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. But before we start, I came across a story that would be an active alcoholic's dream, so I thought it fitted in quite nicely into what we're talking about here. It was a couple of weeks ago. I had it written down just as we were coming towards the end of our break, ready.
Yeah.
And I didn't put it in last week for some reason. I think it was something that was more appropriate. But there was a place in Portugal in the town of Liberate that had a river of good quality red wine running through the streets for a day or two.
I saw this. I didn't read the report, but I noticed it. Yeah, go on, tell us more.
Yeah, well, apparently it was 2 vats at a local distillery had burst, and it sent 2.2 million litres pouring into the streets.
Wow. Now, you described that, when you were setting that up, you described that as an active alcoholic's dream.
Yes.
Right? Well, it would be a new in recovery person's nightmare, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, that's the flip side of that. But looking back, while I was in the madness, that you're looking at someone who spilt vodka through a straw from a carpet. No, so it's a river of red wine going down the streets. You'd think, yes.
So imagine this. Think back to your drinking days, if you will.
Yes.
Imagine you're walking down the towpath on the River Medway.
Yeah.
And it's pure red wine. I mean, what would you do? Would you hopped in for a little swim?
Absolutely. I'd have breaststroked across to and fro several times. Yes.
until you couldn't move anymore.
Well, that's the thing. I would have probably still worried that I'd run out soon. With that constant dream or
scarcity mindset.
Yeah, and they reckoned it was that the amount of wine would have filled up an Olympic-sized swimming pool. All right, so there was a lot there. I mean, 2.2 million litres. It always strikes me when there's a volume needs to be illustrated. It's always an Olympic-sized swimming pool, isn't it? So that we can visualise.
I can't really visualise that because I've never been to the Olympics, so I would never have. I can't guarantee that I've ever seen an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So it's not very. It's the other one of the other ways of measuring is the length. The length of thing would be in London buses, wouldn't it?
It would, or you have.
I can visualise that a little bit more. The height of something might be in London buses.
The height is often, or the size of a football pitch. That's often thrown in, isn't it? This is the size of 6 football pitches, and you think, I can visualise that. Or the size of Wales. That gets thrown in for some reason as well.
Does it? I've never heard of that. What sort of? How big is Wales? Well, it's the size of Wales, that sort of thing.
No, well, we'll leave it there, really, because we could expand on that forever and go into all sorts of silliness, but it is something that's often used.
Okay, I've never heard that one, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, and I use it on things like there's a wildfire in the country. It's wiped out an area the size of Wales. That's that sort of thing. That's where it gets used quite often.
Do you think they have to... So do you think in news reports they have to wait until the wildfire has covered
the size of Wales
so that they can report it in that way?
It's important then, isn't it? Yeah, up till then it's just a little bit of fire that you could stamp out.
It's just the size of Leamington Spa, isn't it, before then? Or Stevenage.
Or whatever you want to pick out, yeah.
That wouldn't be quite as impactful. What is it? It's that the wildfire has destroyed an area the size of Stevenage. It's not. It doesn't have the same gravitas.
It wouldn't make the headlines, would it?
No.
But anyway, it didn't leave a smell apparently when they all cleared up, because apparently the high quality of the wine meant it didn't leave that sort of acidic smell behind.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know whether that's bullshit or not. I don't know. Anyway, should we get onto the subject matter then?
Well, yeah. I just got one little question for you, if I may.
Yeah, far away, mate. Yeah.
What do you remember about the scoring system for conkers at school? Well, let me tell you what I remember, and tell me if this is. I might have imagined this.
No, I know what I remember, but go on.
Okay, so I was walking past a horse chestnut tree this morning.
Yeah.
Marvelling. Well, is marvelling the word? I don't know. I feel a little bit sad that kids don't collect conkers anymore.
Yeah.
conkers are plentiful now, whereas when we were kids, you had to get the tree early doors, didn't you?
You did, or you even go up the tree and knock them down.
Exactly that. So now kids don't collect conkers, presumably because they don't play conkers in the playground anymore.
No, I think they're banned, aren't they?
They probably
Dangerous.
are.
Yeah.
Nanny state. So what I remember was when you had a conker, if you played conkers with someone, every time you won a battle, so if you won a battle against someone else's new conker, you'd have a oneer.
That's it.
And then if you won another battle, you'd have a twoer, right? But what I remember, tell me if this is right, if you fought with your twoer, someone who had a sixer, you would then have an eighter.
That's it. That's the one I remember. Yeah.
And I was trying. Okay, so I've remembered it correctly, but I was trying to decide whether or not that was a reasonable criteria. Is it fair that if you beat a sixer, you would then have all of their wins? I suppose it is, isn't it? I suppose there's some sort of logic to it.
Well, I suppose it's like, a bit like winning all the unified boxing belts, isn't it?
I suppose it is. Yeah.
Yeah. If someone's got two of them, you take them both off him, don't you? If you beat him. Yeah.
I suppose I was just thinking that if you beat someone who had a sixer, they might have won against six very weedy conkers, and then you've got this eighter, and it's a sort of slightly misnomer, isn't it? Really, the idea that you've got this all-conquering conker, no pun intended. Is, but I suppose there's you couldn't create a perfect set of rules, could you? But
I think that and people used to lie about how many wins they'd had anyway, didn't they? Of course they did, and so it was never an accurate system. But I think it was fun. It made it fun.
I enjoyed it. Did you soak them in vinegar and put them in the oven and all that?
I think I did try that, but I don't think I had great success at it really. And if you had a plentiful supply, you didn't really worry that greatly.
No. Anyway, good. Okay, good. I'm glad we've sorted that out. And I was remembering accurately.
Well, I think you and I ought to have a game of conkers at some point in that case.
Good idea, yeah.
We'll end up with sore knuckles like you used to in the old days. We hit each other with them.
Good idea.
We'll video that, put it on the channel. It's another thing that won't happen.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, self-sabotage.
Obviously, it came up in groups this week, but it's come up a lot over the years, as you can imagine. It's very common when people come into recovery, as we talked about in the past. The self-esteem, as you've already touched on, is always extremely low, and which is why relapse in the early days can happen quite regularly.
I think I'm not sure if this is right, but I think probably one of the reasons I suggested self-sabotage is because when I was kind of thinking off the top of my head of the reasons we do it, it struck me that actually quite a lot of those reasons probably are present in people who are active alcoholics or early in recovery.
Yeah. I mean, the context, I can sort of praise the context really, because it was quite complex, but basically someone had something good happen to them, and which they weren't used to, and they ended up picking up. And we were talking about that, and it was an example of self-sabotage where really, we're unused to anything good happening to us when you're in the madness, and the comfort of having a very low self-esteem, it drags you back. And so self-sabotaging, even it's going to do you an awful lot of harm, you go down that route.
Yeah, that's a really interesting example, because I'd see that as a kind of manifestation of a fear of success.
It is, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think the reasons that we do it, we'll look at the reasons, but do you think it could be conscious and sort of subconscious?
Definitely. And probably more unconscious, I'd say.
Would you?
I think so, because...
Is that the right word? Is that the right word to use rather than subconscious and unconscious? I thought unconscious if someone's knocked you out or something,
I'll knock you out in a minute if you keep picking me up on my grammar. No, I think unconscious is fair enough.
Is it? Okay.
Not conscious. Anyway.
Where were you?
Stop being such a pedant. The reason I think that is the case is because if you kind of consider self-sabotage, most of the time we won't be deliberately standing in our own way, will we? We won't be doing something to consciously stop ourselves. So, it tends to happen when part of us says, well, yeah, I want to sustain my sobriety, but there's something else in us that is as yet unresolved that is kind of hauling us back. And that's why I think it tends not to be a conscious thing.
Some of them, it's, and I know on your little note that you put on the list, it's regarding it's sort of learned behaviour. And one of the reasons that comes up why we end up self-sabotaging is through our old friend as sort of a difficult, dysfunctional childhood. When you're told, when you're told by your parents, perhaps, oh, you won't amount to much. So if they are putting you down and chastising you, you feel like that is a position which you will maintain. And therefore, if you do have a little bit of success, you will bring yourself back down to that level which you think you deserve and you've been told that you deserve to be. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it would, because that's what we're doing then is we're kind of picking up the mantle of sabotage. If we have been in some way sabotaged by others, told we won't amount to anything, by parents or teachers, or extensively bullied at school, that can be another reason, it becomes easier for us to believe, to kind of inhabit that belief that we're not good enough, that we can't amount to anything. And then, of course, when it appears as if we are doing okay, it doesn't chime with the view we have of ourselves. And so it feels almost more comfortable to step in and fuck everything up.
That's where you've learnt to believe you deserve to be.
Yeah.
You fit.
I mean, these are manifestations of low self-worth.
Yes.
So low self-worth, as we've discussed many times before, can come from all sorts of places. But if you're told extensively, you're no good, you're no good, you're no good, so if that happens in childhood, you'll tend to recreate those situations when you get into adulthood, either through your partners or maybe even kind of friendships or whatever. And so that becomes the easiest thing for you to believe. And of course, feeling like you're no good is self-sabotage, isn't it?
But one that did come up after that, which is probably something you may better touch on, is cognitive dissonance. So you're sort of holding two conflicting views in your own mind on the situation. And that can lead to self-sabotage. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So the evidence points towards merit and success, but something in you says, no, you'll kind of find other ways of explaining it.
I mean, again, that comes up in groups from time to time. I remember someone saying that they were in fairly early stages of recovery, but they'd got an interview for a job, which is never a great idea. But they thought, they'd been nodded the wink that probably they turn up and you'll get the job. That'd be fine. You can crack on. And then they went and got pissed the night before and sabotaged it. So they didn't go to the interview in the end. Because again, it wasn't something that, that was probably an unconscious decision. But it came at the moment. They thought, I'll tell you what, I can sabotage this, but it was done without that thought process. They got drunk, missed the meeting, and didn't get the job.
Yeah, because that also looks like fear of success.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I want that. I want to feel as if I can hold down a job and pay my way and behave like a kind of responsible citizen. But something in me doesn't believe I can.
Yeah.
And even if I can in the short term, I definitely can't do it in the long term. So I better stand in my own way.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, so that was a sort of an example of cognitive dissonance where there's the one thought process on one hand and the one on the other, and a conflicting one on the other. And then you throw alcohol into or addiction into the equation, it's going to tip that balance quite firmly in one way.
Yeah, I mean, alcohol's really very useful for self-sabotage.
It is, and it's also it is. It's a brilliant way of doing it. It sabotages everything, and not just you, but everything around you as well. It has a lot of uses.
Yeah.
Examples of this, which was the next bit I was going on to.
Hang on, there's just one other one that
I was going to ask you that because I know you thought that. I thought that you probably have a few more to put in there.
I don't think I've got too many, but I have. I mean, the one that certainly springs to mind because I've mentioned fear of success a couple of times is fear of failure.
Yeah,
I think fear of failure is definitely a reason that we stand in our own way. And I suppose the obvious example, which everyone can probably relate to, is if you feel like you want to do something, whether it be professionally or creatively or whatever, but you tell yourself, oh no, people will laugh at me, or what if I can't do it? What if it doesn't turn out very well? That is a classic way of self-sabotage. So
Yeah.
not giving yourself the opportunity to try something you want to do because you fear the consequence of it not going well, either the way you'll feel about yourself, shame or whatever, and think that other people are going to, tear you down. So I think that's a very, very common way in which we self-sabotage.
Yeah, I remember going through that exact that process when we were talking about doing this podcast.
Yeah.
There was moments when I was thinking, this is a great idea. And there's other moments thinking, I'm going to be crap at this, which has turned out to be true. No one's going to want to listen and it's going to be a worthless exercise. So I remember going through that thought process.
Exactly. So there you go. That's a classic example of that. And I reckon, I might be sticking my neck out here, but I reckon, I doubt there'll be anybody listening that can't think of an example of where they kind of step back from something thinking, oh, that might be a bit too much for me.
Yeah, I agree. That does drift into the examples I was going to look at because procrastination came up. It's a way of showing others you're not ready for it. And again, going back to the podcast example, I think I was of a mindset, perhaps we'll do it later on. We'll start it at a later stage, It was so procrastination, which we talked about a lot in the past, haven't we? And how to deal with it. I think we've done whole episodes on it, but it's. I think that's again. It's quite easy to do that, to put it off, isn't it? And sabotage your progress. You think, I'll do that at a later stage. I won't do that now.
Yeah, and we can do it in macro and micro ways. Obviously there are big ways in which we can procrastinate and stand on our own way, but we also do it in tiny little ways. And sometimes those little things that we do become the most frustrating for us. So, for example, you've got a bill to pay and you keep putting it off. And it's easy. You can do it online. You can do it in 30 seconds. But for some reason, you keep kicking the can down the road. Yeah. And then, a parking fine or something. And then all of a sudden, instead of it being 25 quid, it's 100 quid. Yeah. Well, that is classic self-sabotage.
It is, isn't it?
You cost yourself money. Yeah. Because you didn't do something that would have taken you 30 seconds. And of course, what then happens is we criticize ourselves, we berate ourselves for that and just make the whole thing much worse. So yeah, procrastination is a massive one for self-sabotage.
It is. And it's that it goes back to what you were saying about fear of failure as well, isn't it, on that? You put it off because you don't think you're going to be very good. Perfectionism come up next as well. And again, we've done a whole episode on that. When you're holding yourself to an impossibly high standard, it causes delays, doesn't it? And setbacks. If you're aiming for a perfect strategy, it's nice if things do go without a hitch and it goes per plan, but that rarely happens. There's something that does tend to stand in the way of that. Inevitably, as I've suffered from that issues in the past. I think I'm better now. But you come undone, so you end up feeling ashamed. And then you end up getting prone to it all leads on to other things, doesn't it? Like depression and all sorts of things. So perfectionism is a nasty one.
It's a scourge. Delays and setbacks as a result of perfectionism are bad enough, but perfectionism often also stops us doing anything, stops us doing something completely. Yes. So we won't even get started.
Won't even attempt it.
I can't make it the way I want to do it. Or you might have spent ages and ages and ages doing something and you think, I can't let anyone see it. I can't let it out into the world because it's not perfect. Yes. So yes, that's another classic form of perfectionism. And all it really does is it makes you feel worse about yourself.
Yeah, it does. And which can lead on to the next one I was looking at, which is self-medication, which is probably the most relevant to this podcast. To deal with that constant battle between wanting to be successful and the sort of the script that you play over in your own mind, saying that this battle is I'm not enjoying it. I don't know what to do. I'm going to have to self-sabotage by drinking or taking drugs.
Yeah, we've often spoken about how when you're in active addiction, what you're doing is you're drinking or taking drugs or whatever you're doing to avoid you feeling what you're feeling. So to avoid the discomfort of emotion. And I think it's important to recognize also that self-sabotage, you are self-sabotaging when you're stopping yourself from feeling what you're feeling. So if you've got an uncomfortable emotion, whatever it is, grief or frustration or sadness, if you're trying to stop the process of that emotion moving through you, that is self-sabotage. So when you're drinking or using or whatever it is, it's self-sabotage, even in as much as it is preventing you from feeling what you feel, because you're stopping yourself from being a functioning human, aren't you?
Do you think self-harm comes under that banner as well? The reason I say that, because I remember someone saying in a group at one point that they didn't think they were an alcoholic. It was just a form of self-harm. That would
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think that what I'm thinking about it, I would say that self-harm is a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah. It's that way round, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it is, I think I'd put self-harm under the banner of self-sabotage, because when you're self-harming, you are standing in your own way, aren't you? So hang on, this person said, I don't think I'm an alcoholic, it's just a form of self-harm.
Yeah.
Okay, so my response to that would be, is that better then?
Yeah, well, yes. I think it's a discussion that we'd had in the group there, saying that, that's what alcoholism is really. It is self-harm. You can't differentiate the two. You can't say, I haven't got alcoholism, it is just self-harm. Alcoholism is self-harm.
It comes back to a conversation we had a long time ago about labels.
Yes.
I've had this conversation with a couple of people recently. The discussion around, well, what am I? Am I dependent? I'm an alcoholic. Does it matter?
No.
If you've got a destructive relationship with a substance or with drink or with a behavior, you call it what you like.
Yeah.
I don't care what you call it. But the fact is, it's having that negative impact on your life. If someone putting a label on something stops you from getting the help that you want, then it's not a very useful label, is it?
Not at all. No. So how do we stop this self-sabotaging? And I've got some points down here, but I wonder if you had any points you wanted to kick us off on that. How do we stop that?
Well, I was thinking about this actually, because I knew you wanted to talk about this. And I hadn't really kind of considered it in this way before, but as you've just illustrated with your examples, there are so many different, it's such a broad church, self-sabotage. I think, and this is going to sound like I'm avoiding answering, but I think the answer to what do you do about it is it depends what form your self-sabotage takes. So perfectionism, addressing that requires a different approach than procrastination, for example, or self-esteem, or
well, it does, and that's what the problem I came across when I was trying to research about how to stop it, because it came up with it's a bit like people saying to you as an alcoholic, "Well, just stop drinking," because the cures for this self-sabotaging was stop procrastinating. Okay, which is great. Well, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, but how do you do that? So it was difficult to get answers. It really needs sitting down with time with a therapist like yourself, doesn't it? Because another one was stop perfectionist thinking. Well, again, I can see the value of that, but it doesn't just happen, does it?
No, it doesn't. I think when I was thinking, I had a couple of other thoughts about what self-sabotaging behaviour looks like. So, for example. And it's related to something you just said. One of the ways in which self-sabotage manifests is when we refuse help and support.
Yes.
So if someone's reaching out or saying to you, hey, listen, I think you might benefit from some help here, refusing it is self-sabotage. So as you've said, part of the route to addressing some of these behaviours is being open-minded enough, because that's another one. If you're closed-minded, if you think you're right and no one else can tell you how it is, that's a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
So I think in order to get past some of these self-sabotaging behaviours, you need to be open-minded enough to recognise there might be a different way, and you have to be open enough to consider that you might need some support, maybe professional support, maybe peer support, but something. I think there is a necessity for some humility when you're in that position where you think, hang on, I'm recognizing now that some of these things that I do are not helping me. They're standing in my way. I don't really know why I'm doing it. I'm probably not even doing it consciously, but I keep messing my own life up. Maybe it's time for me to be open-minded about trying to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And maybe I need some help in order to address that. So I think that's probably the way I would answer that question.
And I think that sums up really some of the notes I had on there. But they're talking about looking for patterns in your life, or examining the root causes. So if there is a childhood issue, via therapy, you can get help to get that sorted out. And they talked about stop looking solely at the bigger picture. Coming back to our friend about chunking down as well. So if that is standing in your way and you're procrastinating and you're not moving forward because you're overwhelmed by the bigger picture, chunk it down.
Well, I think that's also a really important one, because if you recognise that there are various things that you do that tend to make your life more difficult, it is important to become more kind of granular about them.
Yeah.
What is it specifically? When do you do it? Why do you think you do that? What do you get from it? And of course, those are conversations very difficult to have with yourself. I mean, it's difficult to have with, someone in your life in some other respect, but they're conversations that are probably easier to have in a group of peers or with a therapist. And I think there are a couple of other things as well which tend to characterize or are examples of behaviors that are self-sabotaging. One of them is disconnecting. So you kind of push everyone away. That's what alcoholics often do. You did it.
Totally. Yeah.
So you close yourself off. It's self-sabotaging because no one can get to you. And if no one can get to you, then no one can help you. What else? Oh, and I suppose the other thing is an unwillingness to accept responsibility for your own life, which is, again, a very common thing in addiction. So if you're constantly saying, well, what do you expect? What can I do? There's nothing I can do. I'm powerless. Obviously, you're self-sabotaging because you're refusing to take responsibility for whatever it is that you're doing that's making your life more difficult. And I think all of those things hang together. Refusing support, refusal to take responsibility, cutting yourself off. They all isolate you to the extent that it becomes really, really hard to make any move forwards.
It is, and we do see that where people stop coming to groups, where it's almost that they factor in, because we often talk about lapses happening a long time before the actual drink is picked up. It can be a couple of weeks, can be longer than that sometimes. You see the signs early on and you start to self-sabotage because that's where you're heading. So you will stop going to the meetings. You don't want to hear stuff. Again, you want that help to stop because you want to go back down your old self-destructive route.
Yeah. There's one other thing that we haven't got time to go into today. Maybe we'll kind of find a way of circling back on it at some point. But often people self-sabotage because and again, this is an unconscious thing. They're not doing it deliberately. But they self-sabotage because they actually like the chaos that it creates.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what they want.
There's comfort in that chaos that you understand, isn't there?
There is, because for a lot of people, if they really ask themselves, well, who would I be without the chaos? They wouldn't know. And so, in that sense, self-sabotage also almost becomes something. It's a necessity. I have to keep messing stuff up because that's who I am. And obviously, if you're in that position, you definitely need some professional support.
No, you're right. And there was a point that came up that this negative behaviour, it can be very time consuming. It takes a lot of work. It's resource demanding to keep this self-sabotage up, which I think was quite an interesting point. So that's about it, really. That's all the notes I had on self-sabotage. I found there was a lot to read and to try and concisely put that into a position where we can get it within a half an hour podcast or 40-minute podcast. There was loads of stuff on it out there.
If you tried to gather all of the information, that would have been a form of self-sabotage.
It would have been.
You'd never have got to the end of it.
I wouldn't have done it. I had to chunk down.
Actually, it just occurred to me that doing this podcast is probably quite good for you in terms of getting you away from perfectionism.
It is, yeah, because it
couldn't be further from perfection, could it?
It is, but every time I finish, I think, oh, that was shit. That was rubbish.
Do you? Do you still think that?
Yeah, often. Yeah, and I'll think it after this one as well, yeah.
It doesn't really matter, though, does it, what we think?
Not really, but
it really matters what other people think. If other people stop listening, then I suppose they might agree with us. But
and that's about it, really. That's what I've got. I was going to go on to unless you wanted to add anything else.
No,
there.
That's quite enough. Thanks. I need a coffee.
You need a coffee. We'll go on quickly onto our gratitude list, shall we?
Okay.
I had quite an extensive one last week. So
you did, and you went first last week because you went right at the top of the episode.
I did. So it's time, so you can go first this time around, I think.
Can I have my hammock again?
You can. We're allowed to have it on more than once.
I'm not going to. I'll tell you what I'm going to have. I don't think I've had it before, but it's quite surprising that I haven't. If I haven't, I'm going to go for autumn colours.
Autumn colours. Yeah, I prefer spring colours, but yeah, autumn colours are nice.
Well, I don't give a shit what you prefer.
Well, no,
it isn't your gratitude list.
No, it's not, and you're right to admonish me publicly.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm out walking at the moment, and you see the leaves, the trees turning, and you're hoping that with all the fallen leaves, you're not treading in some dog shit, which is obviously a slight problem this time of year. But the colours are just magnificent. I like autumn. And that gives me a bit of a lift when I'm out walking amongst the trees, seeing all the golds and. I do understand that. I do understand.
Oranges. Do you ever sing to yourself the opening lines of California Dreaming when you see them? All the leaves are brown, because I always do, and I can't stop myself.
I don't know if I would do that habitually, but I do sing to myself quite a lot. So the chances of me having sung that particular song probably quite high.
Yes. I always do when I see that the winter's starting to come in, or autumn's upon us, or the fall, as it's known, isn't it?
Do you sing anything by the fall?
By the fall, Mark E. Smith, he comes to mind all the time. Yeah. And away you go. But mine's slightly different from that. It's not quite as rounded as your point, I think. But
okay.
I'm grateful for the versatility of masking tape. Now, this is not what you think, really, because obviously I use masking tape quite a lot at work all the time, but I was able to quickly get a bit because I caught my finger on a gripper rod and it started to bleed. And in my, obviously I had my decorator's overalls on, and in my pouch I had some masking tape, so I was able to quickly take some off, wrap it around my finger and crack on with my day. So the versatility of mine, it's not just for masking, it can be used for medical procedures as well.
It's not, it hasn't got that nice little bit of gauze though, has it?
No, it hasn't. No, it's not ideal because it'll pull open the wound when you take it off.
Yeah. And it might have all sorts of gunge in it because it's been in your overall pocket. So you've probably got sepsis now.
I think so, but as you peel the masking tape off of the reel, then there's some pure bits underneath there, isn't there?
I suppose there is, and there's a tape, isn't there? There's a medical tape called Micropore, I think it's called, which I suppose it's almost like a medical masking tape. You should have a look into that. You probably really like it.
But it meant I was able to just crack on. Well, I didn't have to move from where I was. I could just crack on with my day, and it was.
Well, some people would see that as a disadvantage, wouldn't they? Because they'd say, "Well, I can now have half an hour off to soothe my bleeding digit."
That doesn't sit neatly with a self-employed man's working ethic, unfortunately. No. If you're employed in the corporate world where you take a long time just going for a poo, then yeah, that's fine. Not for me, thank you.
Yeah, I suppose if you're in the corporate world, then that would be a half day, wouldn't it?
You'd fill out accident report forms, wouldn't you, and go and see HR and all sorts. Yeah, it'd be a mess.
Yeah.
So that's. I thought that was a good point to put on.
Good, very nice, excellent.
On this day in music, but which year? So 3 little questions for you, mate. All right.
Yeah.
The first one. Do you know the year that Chaz from Chaz and Dave died? He died from pneumonia, as it turned out, right? Yeah. Although he was suffering from cancer, it's pneumonia that sniped him.
I'm going to go 2013.
2018, so it's a bit later than we thought. Yes.
5 years, that's not very impressive, is it?
Well, it's tough, isn't it? Years are always tricky to.
As I said last week, when they're reasonably recent, I find them more difficult.
They are more difficult, aren't they? We'll try the next one then, because we mentioned, I think, the other week, the Bryan Adams song, "Everything I Do for You."
Yeah,
which was number one for just for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
Do you know what year that was?
Oh, this is difficult.
It was from a film, wasn't it? Was it from the Robin Hood film or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
That's it. So
I'm just trying to think when that was.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have got this right. Well, I wouldn't have got the Chaz.
It's got to be the 90s. Am I right in the 90s?
Yes.
I'm going to go 1994.
Not bad. 91. 91.
Well, I'll go 3 years out. So this, by definition, this one I should be 1 year out.
Okay. Well, I think
5, 3, 1.
You'll do well in that case.
Right.
For the hardest one.
Okay, great.
What year was Julio Iglesias born? Not Enrique. Not Enrique,
year was he
son.
Born?
Yeah, Julio.
Is he still alive?
I don't know.
19. I'm just going to have a punt here. This is the year that came into my head.
Okay.
1946.
Oh, not bad. 43. So
I'm quite pleased with that. That's not bad at all.
It's not bad. It's a good.
When I began the begin there. That's the only one of his I know.
Well, exactly that. But he's a multi-million record selling man around the world, isn't he?
When you begin the begin. I think Julio, I've got to find out if he's
still alive.
Yeah. Do you reckon he's dead or alive?
I think he's probably dead.
Do you?
Yeah.
He's actually alive. He's had a lot of plastic surgery, though. Bloody Nora.
You're not looking at Enrico, are you?
Man. He's 80.
Is he? Oh, okay. No, that's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah. Well played, Julio.
Well, but yeah, he's done well for that, but to survive.
Good lad.
That's about it, mate. Are we good there?
Right. Yeah. Well, I thought we didn't have an item from the 100 things every skills.
No, I forgot to put that on. It was a real.
That's the feature that all of our listeners wait for with bated breath. I can't believe it.
I only realised when we'd actually started recording. I thought
you tried to slip that under the radar, didn't you? You thought I was going to notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, disgraceful. I've publicly shamed you for that.
I'll put it on again.
Make sure you don't bloody miss it next week.
No, I won't, because it was a fine feature. And for some reason, I'll tell you what it was. It's not on my template that I normally use when I'm doing my notes.
You've unconsciously self-sabotaged Sideways podcast.
I did, yeah. And also the fallout from that is it's your feature. So I've been quite nasty, haven't I, really, about it?
You have. If we lose droves of listeners this week, we'll know exactly why.
Well, I'm self-sabotaging, aren't I?
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Mate. See you later.
Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.